Little girl points to homeless woman with a sleeping baby in the park. And what the billionaire father does next is unbelievable. Sunday arrived quietly in Oak Creek. Gavin Rhodes adjusted his jacket and looked at Clara, who was swinging her little legs in the car seat. "Come on, little one. Just a quick walk." Clara jumped out of the car with her usual energy. Her blonde hair shone in the afternoon sun, and her blue eyes scanned everything around as if looking for adventures. "Can I run over there, Daddy?" "You can, but slowly." The park was one of those places that exist in every small town. Wooden benches, old trees, a playground that had seen better days. Gavin liked coming here. It was quiet, no rush. No constant calls that filled his days. Clara darted ahead but stopped suddenly, as if she had found something fascinating. Clara stood still, observing, and suddenly pointed her finger toward a woman. "Daddy, why is she sleeping here with the baby?" Gavin caught up to her and saw what had caught his daughter's attention. On the farthest bench, a woman was sleeping. She had disheveled blonde hair falling over her face, and in her arms she held a baby. Her clothes were wrinkled, dirty, a small backpack on the ground next to an empty baby bottle. The question came out softly, but Gavin felt as if she had shouted it. He looked around, hoping Clara would get distracted by something else. "Come on, Clara. Let's go see the ducks in the pond." "But Daddy, come on!" Gavin took his daughter's hand and tried to pull her in the opposite direction, but Clara didn't move. She kept looking at the woman. "Is she cold?" "Clara, let's go." "Is the baby sleeping too?" Gavin sighed. He knew this stubbornness. Clara had inherited it from her mother. When something caught her attention, there was no easy way to pull her away. "Maybe she's just resting," he said, trying to sound casual. "But why didn't she go home to rest?" The question hung in the air. Gavin had no answer. Or rather, he did, but he didn't know how to explain it to a 5-year-old. Clara let go of her father's hand and took a few steps toward the woman. Gavin followed, worried. "Clara, we can't bother. I'm not going to bother her. I just want to see if she's okay." The woman stirred slightly. The baby in her arms seemed to be a few months old. Gavin noticed she had tried to create a sort of nest with a thin blanket. Protection against the cold afternoon wind. Clara stood a few feet away, just watching. Her light eyes were serious, focused, as if she were trying to solve a difficult puzzle. "Daddy," she whispered, "is the baby the same age as Noah from school?" "I don't know, Clara." "Where do they live?" Gavin felt a tightness in his chest. He didn't want Clara to see this. He didn't want her to know that people slept on the street because they had nowhere else to go. That babies grew up without a safe roof over their heads, but it was too late. Clara had already seen. The woman moved again. This time she opened her eyes. They were green, tired. She noticed Clara and Gavin and immediately sat up on the bench, protectively. "Sorry," Gavin said quickly. "My daughter just—" The woman shook her head as if to say it was okay. She adjusted the baby in her arms and tried to fix her hair. Clara took another step toward her. "Hi," the girl said, with the simplicity only a child has. The woman smiled faintly. "Hi, sweetie. What's your baby's name?" "Noah." "That's a pretty name." "Mine is Clara." Gavin was impressed by his daughter's naturalness. Clara didn't seem scared or confused. "They're just curious and kind." "Clara," Gavin called softly, "let's let them rest." "Okay, Daddy." Clara waved at the woman. "Bye, Noah," she said to the baby, who opened his little eyes for a second. They walked in silence to the playground. Clara got on the swing, but Gavin noticed she didn't have the same energy as before. She kept looking toward the bench where the woman was. "She looked sad, Daddy." "Yeah. Why doesn't she have a house?" Gavin pushed the swing slowly, trying to buy time to think of an answer. "Sometimes people go through hard times, Clara." "What kind of hard times?" "Things we can't control." Clara swung her legs, thoughtful. "If I give her my blanket, will she be less cold?" Gavin's heart tightened again. Clara had always been like this. Since she was little, she worried about others. If she saw someone crying, she wanted to help. If a child fell on the playground, She would run to see if they were okay. She has her own blanket, sweetie. But it's very thin. They stayed at the playground for another half hour. Clara played, but she always looked back at the bench. The woman hadn't moved. The baby continued to sleep. When they finally left, Clara stopped one last time. "Daddy, are they going to stay here all night?" "I don't know." "What if it rains?" Gavin didn't answer. He just took his daughter's hand and walked to the car. On the way back home, Clara was quiet. Gavin watched her in the rearview mirror. She looked out the window, lost in thoughts that seemed too big for a 5-year-old girl. When they got home, Clara went straight to her room. Gavin found her sitting on the bed, hugging her teddy bear. "Are you okay, sweetie?" "Daddy, did Mommy ever sleep on the street?" The question caught Gavin off guard. "No, Clara. Mommy always had a house. And me. You've always had a house too, and you always will." Clara nodded but remained thoughtful. "And that woman? Will she always sleep in the park?" Gavin sat on the edge of the bed. "I hope not." "Why do people sleep on the street, Daddy?" Gavin took a deep breath. How to explain inequality, poverty, abandonment to a child? How to talk about a world where not everyone had what they had? Sometimes life gets hard for some people, Clara, and they need help. Can we help? Maybe. How? Gavin didn't have an answer for that either, or rather, he didn't know what answer to give. That night, after Clara fell asleep, Gavin stood by the living room window. The house was silent. Too big for 2 people, full of rooms that were rarely used. He thought about the woman in the park, about the baby in her arms, about how Clara had reacted, about all the questions he couldn't answer. For the first time in a long time, Gavin Rhodes felt uncomfortable with his own life, with the distance he kept from the world, with how easy it was to pretend that certain things didn't exist. But now Clara had seen, and a child's questions have a way of sticking with you, of not letting you forget. On Monday morning, Clara came down for breakfast with her teddy bear under her arm, and the first question already on the tip of her tongue. "Daddy, do you think she has a blanket?" Gavin almost dropped his coffee cup. "Who, Clara?" "The lady in the park. She had a thin blanket. What if it was really cold last night?" Gavin sighed. He had hoped Clara would have forgotten, but he knew his daughter. When something touched her heart, it never let go. "She's probably fine, sweetie. But you don't know, do you?" "No." Clara stirred her cereal in the bowl, thoughtful. "Does the baby have a place to play?" "Clara." "Noah, he must want to play too. All babies like to play." Gavin tried to change the subject by talking about school, about the cartoons she liked to watch. But Clara always came back to the same topic. It was like that all week. On Tuesday, as Gavin drove her to school. "Daddy, why is she on the street?" "We've already talked about this, Clara. But I didn't really understand. Why would someone be on the street with a baby?" Clara rested her forehead against the car window, watching the houses go by. "Do all these houses have people living inside?" "Most of them do." "Then why doesn't she have one too?" Gavin didn't know how to answer, how to explain injustice to a 5-year-old. On Wednesday at dinner time, "I wonder if she ate today." "Clara, eat your food." "I am eating, but I wonder if she ate too." Clara pushed her plate across the table. "If I don't eat it all, can I take it to her?" "The food will spoil, sweetie." "But she must be hungry." Gavin looked at his daughter. Clara had always been sensitive, but this was different. She seemed genuinely worried. On Thursday, at bedtime, "Daddy, do you think Noah cries at night? What if he has nightmares?" "Babies have always cried, Clara." "It's normal. But it must be scarier on the street. There's the noise of cars, of people passing by. What if someone bad shows up?" Clara hugged her teddy bear tightly. "If I were a baby, I'd be scared to sleep in the park." Gavin sat on the edge of the bed. "Why are you so worried about them, Clara?" "Because..." She thought for a moment. "Mommy always said to help those who need it. They need it, don't they?" Gavin's heart ached. Sarah had always been like that too, always worried about others, always wanting to help. They do. So why don't we help? Sometimes it's not that simple, Clara. Why not? Gavin had no answer for that. On Friday, Gavin was in his office when his cell phone rang. It was from Clara's school. "Mr. Rhodes, Clara is fine, but she brought some extra snacks today. She said she wanted to save them for the lady and the baby from the park. We thought it best to let you know." Gavin closed his eyes. He had to do something. Clara's questions weren't going to stop. And worse, they were getting to him too. Every night, lying in bed, he thought about the woman in the park, about the baby, about how Clara had reacted, about all the questions he couldn't answer. On Saturday morning, Clara appeared in the kitchen with a backpack on. "Are we going to visit her, Daddy?" "Clara, please, just to see if she's okay." Clara came closer and held her father's hand. "I had a bad dream last night. I dreamt that Noah was crying and no one could hear him." Gavin looked at his daughter. Her blue eyes shone with a mix of hope and concern. How could he say no to that face? "All right, but just a quick visit." "Really? Really?" Clara jumped for joy. "Can I bring her something?" Gavin thought for a moment. Sarah always cooked when she wanted to show affection. Maybe it was a good idea. How about we make a sandwich? And for the baby too. "The baby still drinks milk, Clara, but we can bring a bottle of milk." Clara ran to her room and came back with a small doll. "And this is for Noah to play with." They prepared 2 turkey and cheese sandwiches and a thermos of warm milk. Clara insisted on putting everything in a lunchbox that had belonged to her mother. "Mommy always said that food made with love is more nourishing," Clara said seriously. Gavin felt that familiar tightness in his chest. Clara spoke of her mother so naturally, but it always caught him off guard. "Do you think she'll like it?" Clara asked in the car. "I think so. What if she doesn't want to take it? Why wouldn't she? Sometimes people are embarrassed to accept help. Mommy taught me that." Gavin looked at Clara in the rearview mirror. Sometimes he forgot how mature she was for her age. At the park, they found Leah on the same bench. This time she was awake, rocking Noah in her arms. The baby seemed restless. When she saw Gavin and Clara approaching, Leah tensed up. "Hi," Clara said, waving. "Hi, sweetie." Gavin approached slowly, not wanting to scare her. "Sorry to bother you. My daughter was worried. We brought a few things." He showed her the lunchbox. Leah looked surprised, then suspicious. "You didn't have to—" "I wanted to," Clara interrupted. "I made a sandwich for Noah too, but Daddy said he still drinks milk." Clara took the doll out of her backpack. "And I brought this for him to play with. It's from my collection, but it's on loan." Leah looked at the doll, then at Clara. Her green eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Clara. That's very kind of you." "Can I pet Noah?" Leah hesitated, then nodded. Clara came closer and gently touched the baby's little hand. "Hi, Noah. Remember me?" Noah stopped whimpering and looked at Clara with curiosity. Gavin handed over the lunchbox. Leah accepted it with a quiet, "Thank you." "May I sit down?" Gavin asked. Leah nodded. Clara had already settled on the grass, talking to Noah as if he could understand every word. "He's beautiful," said Clara. "How many months old is he?" 6 months. "Can he sit up on his own yet?" "He's learning." But without a safe place to practice, Leah's voice trailed off. Clara didn't seem to notice the sadness behind the words. "My house has a really big rug in the living room. It's perfect for a baby to sit on." Gavin watched the conversation between Clara and Leah. There was something about the woman that intrigued him, the way she spoke, the way she moved. She was educated. She didn't seem like someone who had always lived on the streets. "May I ask?" Gavin began, hesitantly. "What happened?" Leah was silent for a moment. She looked at Noah, then at Clara, who was trying to get the baby to hold the doll. "My husband left me when Noah was 2 months old," she said, her voice firm but low. "He said he wasn't ready to be a father. That life had gotten too hard." Gavin listened without interrupting. "I later found out he had taken out a lot of debt in my name, credit cards, loans, financing. Everything signed with my information." She adjusted Noah in her lap, who had started playing with a loose thread on her blouse. "I tried to work, but I couldn't afford daycare for Noah and pay the debts at the same time. My salary didn't even cover half of it. I lost my job because I couldn't work overtime. Then I lost the house. And your family? Friends? My parents died when I was young. I have no siblings. And friends, she gave a bitter smile. It's amazing how people disappear when you need them most. When you're doing well, everyone wants to be around. When you really need help, the excuses appear. I'm so sorry. I received an eviction notice, then another. I tried to negotiate, but it was no use. The house was demolished last month. I was there that day. I saw it all being torn down. Her voice trembled slightly. I had nowhere to go. Some shelters don't accept mothers with babies. Others were full, with waiting lists months long. So, she made a gesture that encompassed the park. Here we are. Clara had stopped playing and was listening, her blue eyes focused on Leah's face. Aunt Leah, why did your husband leave? Clara, Gavin gently reprimanded. No, it's okay, Leah said. Some people don't know how to stay when things get tough, Clara. They'd rather leave than face the problems. That's very mean. It is. Clara became thoughtful, playing with the grass. But now you have us, at least to talk to. Thank you, sweetie. And to bring you food, too. Leah smiled for the first time since she began telling her story. And to bring borrowed dolls for Noah, Clara laughed. He doesn't know how to play with a doll yet, but he'll learn. They stayed in the park for over an hour. Clara played with Noah, who giggled every time she made funny faces or sang silly songs. Leah ate the sandwiches slowly, as if it were the best meal in the world. Gavin observed the interaction between them. Clara treated Leah as if she were a beloved aunt. Leah responded with genuine patience and affection, and Noah seemed calmer in their presence. You're very pretty, Clara said suddenly. Leah laughed. Thank you. You're very pretty too. Daddy always says I take after my mommy. She had blonde hair just like mine, and like yours too. Your mother must have been a very special woman to have a daughter like you. Clara nodded seriously. She was... Daddy gets sad sometimes when he remembers her, but I think she would be happy to know we're helping you. Gavin felt his eyes sting. Clara always surprised him with these observations. As they prepared to leave, Clara held Leah's hand. Are you going to stay here again tonight? I am. And tomorrow too? Probably. Clara looked at her father, then at the bench, then at the sky that was starting to get cloudy. Daddy, our house is very big, isn't it? Gavin understood where Clara was going with this. It is, Clara. And it has lots of empty rooms. It does. And the playroom that nobody uses. Yes. Clara turned to Leah. Why don't you come to our house, just until you find a better place? Leah blushed. Clara, that's very kind, but I can't accept. Why not? Because you don't know me well. And I can't impose on people who have already done so much for me. But you wouldn't be imposing, Clara insisted. Would she, Daddy? She looked at her father, waiting for support. Gavin was silent for a moment. He looked at Leah, who was holding Noah against her chest. At Clara, who was waiting for an answer, at the bench where they would sleep another night. He thought of Sarah, what she would do in this situation. Clara's right, he finally said. Our house is big. And you shouldn't be here. I can't accept, Leah repeated, but her voice sounded less convinced. Why not? Because you don't owe me anything. You've already done too much by just caring. What if it's not about owing? Gavin asked. What if it's about doing the right thing? You don't even really know me. We know enough, said Clara. You're kind to Noah. You're polite, and you need help. Leah looked into Gavin's eyes, then into Clara's. She saw sincerity. She saw kindness. It would only be for a few days, she finally said, until I can get myself organized. As long as you need. Clara jumped for joy. Really, you're coming home with us? I think so, Leah smiled, still unsure. Noah is going to love the playroom, and there's a big bathtub in the guest bathroom, and the kitchen is huge. The drive to the house was quiet. Leah held Noah and a small backpack with all their belongings. Clara couldn't stop talking about what they were going to show the baby. When they arrived, Gavin showed them the guest room on the ground floor. It has a private bathroom and is close to the kitchen. Easier for you with Noah." "Thank you," Leah said softly, looking around the room as if she couldn't believe she was there. "I'll get some clean towels and some things for the baby. We still have some of Clara's old things in the attic." While Gavin went to get the things, Clara stayed with Leah. "You're going to like it here. It's very warm, and there's a big bathtub in your bathroom, and the kitchen always has food. Clara, are you sure this is okay? Your dad won't be upset later. Why would he be? For having strangers in the house. But you're not strangers. You're Leah and Noah." That night, after Clara fell asleep, Gavin found Leah in the kitchen. She was warming milk for Noah, who was whimpering softly in her arms. "Sorry," she said. "I didn't want to wake anyone." "You didn't." "I'm always up late." They stood in silence as she carefully prepared the bottle. "I can help with something," she offered. "Cleaning, cooking, gardening. I don't want to be here doing nothing." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. For myself. I need to feel useful." Gavin nodded. "If it makes you feel better." In the following days, the house subtly changed. Leah would wake up early and make coffee for everyone. She organized Clara's toys without being asked. She watered the porch plants that Gavin always forgot. She cared for Noah with a tenderness that made Gavin stop what he was doing just to watch. The way she sang softly while rocking him, how she smiled when he babbled a new sound. At night, after Clara was asleep, she would rock Noah, singing lullabies that echoed through the hallways, filling a silence that Gavin hadn't even known bothered him. Small, almost imperceptible gestures. A flower in the vase in the living room that was always empty. The smell of cookies coming from the oven for the first time in years. The sound of a child's laughter from the garden as Clara played with Noah. Gavin watched everything from a distance, trying to understand what was happening to him. The house was different, more alive, warmer, and he, for the first time in a long time, didn't feel completely alone. 2 weeks had passed since Leah and Noah arrived. The household routine had transformed almost imperceptibly, as if they had always been there. Gavin came home from work and found Clara in the living room, doing a puzzle on the floor. Noah was sitting next to her, babbling and trying to grab the colorful pieces. "Hi, Daddy!" Clara waved without taking her eyes off the puzzle. "Where's Leah?" "In the kitchen." "She's making lasagna." The smell coming from the kitchen confirmed Clara's words. Gavin couldn't remember the last time he had smelled that homemade aroma spreading through the house. In the kitchen, Leah had her back to him, stirring something on the stove. She was wearing an apron that had belonged to Sarah and had been stored in a drawer for years. "Hi," he said. Leah turned, smiling. "Hi, I hope you don't mind. Clara said you both like lasagna." "Of course I don't mind. It smells great. It'll be ready in about 20 minutes. Gavin nodded and went to take a shower. In his room, he stood in front of the mirror. Something was different about him too. He looked less tired, less empty. When they came down for dinner, Clara couldn't stop talking. "Aunt Leah, tell Daddy how Noah almost managed to crawl today. He's not quite ready, but he tried." Leah smiled, cutting a small piece of lasagna for Clara. "And also tell him about the song you sang to him." Gavin watched the interaction between them. Clara had grown attached to Leah in a natural way, as if she were really family. "Daddy, did you know Aunt Leah knows how to do origami?" "I didn't know that. She's going to teach me this weekend, and she'll also teach Noah when he's a little older." Noah was in the borrowed high chair that Gavin had brought down from the attic. The baby clapped his little hands on the tray, happy with the attention. "He's gotten so much bigger, hasn't he?" Clara observed. "He has," Leah agreed. "Good food and a warm place to sleep work wonders." Gavin felt a strange pang in his chest. Pride, satisfaction. He couldn't define it. "Aunt Leah," Clara continued, chewing slowly. "What did you think when I told you that Daddy builds really big buildings?" Gavin was bringing the fork to his mouth when he choked. He coughed, trying to hide it. "Are you okay, Daddy?" I'm fine, just went down the wrong way." Leah gently patted his back. "Drink some water." Clara continued as if nothing had happened. Aunt Leah thought it was really cool at Wright. She said it must be hard to build such big buildings. Leah nodded, looking at Gavin with curiosity. It must be. What kind of buildings do you build? Gavin drank more water, buying time. Various types. Residential, commercial. That's cool. Clara said they're really tall. Some are. Clara swung her little legs in the chair. Daddy has a big company. He has a huge office with a giant desk. Clara, it's true, and he has lots of employees and huge drawings on the wall. Leah smiled. You must work a lot. A little too much sometimes. You used to work too much, Clara corrected. Now you come home earlier. Gavin realized it was true. Since Leah and Noah had been in the house, he felt more like coming home early. And why did you choose this job? Leah asked. My father was an engineer. I grew up watching him build things. I guess I take after him. It must be rewarding to see a project go from paper to reality. Gavin nodded, but felt a strange discomfort. It wasn't always rewarding. Sometimes building meant demolishing first. It meant displacing people. People like Leah. Daddy, tell Aunt Leah about that 30-story building you made. Clara, Leah doesn't want to hear about these things. Yes, I do, Leah said gently. It's interesting. But Gavin changed the subject, asking about Clara's plans for the weekend. After dinner, while Leah was giving Noah a bath, Gavin stayed in the living room with Clara. Daddy, Aunt Leah is really nice, isn't she? She is. And Noah too. He already recognizes me when I get close. Babies are smart. Our house used to be so quiet, Clara observed, hugging her teddy bear. Now, there's always someone singing, or laughing, or making noise in the kitchen. Gavin looked around. Clara was right. The house was different, more alive. Do you like having them here? I like it a lot, and you? Gavin thought for a moment. I like it too. Mommy would have liked them too, right? Definitely. Clara yawned. Can I sleep in your bed for a little while today? Just until they finish Noah's bath? You can. They went upstairs together. Clara curled up in the comforter on Gavin's bed, like she used to do when she was smaller. Daddy, I used to have nightmares sometimes, but I don't anymore. Why is that? Because I don't feel alone. Even when you're not in the room, I know there are other people in the house. Gavin felt his heart clench. He didn't know Clara felt lonely. Did you feel lonely before? A little bit. Our house is too big for just 2 people. And now? Now it feels just the right size. Later, after Clara had fallen asleep in his bed, Gavin went down to the kitchen. Leah was there, preparing Noah's bottle for the middle of the night. Is Clara asleep? She asked softly. She is in my bed. She does that sometimes when she's happy. She's a special girl. She is. She takes after her mother. They were silent for a moment. Noah slept peacefully in Leah's arms. Thank you, she said suddenly. For what? For everything. For letting us stay. For Clara treating me like family. For you. For you not making me feel like a burden. You're not a burden, Leah. You've brought life to this house. Really? Really, Clara is happier. She sleeps better, and I... And you? Gavin hesitated. I'm happier too, I think. Leah smiled. That's good. And you? Are you feeling good here? Better than I've felt in a long time. For the first time in months, Noah has a safe place to grow up. And I can sleep without worrying about where we'll wake up. You can stay as long as you want. I can't abuse your kindness forever. It's not kindness, Leah. It's... He searched for the right words. It's the right thing to do. In the days that followed, the transformation of the house became even more evident. Leah had reorganized the pantry, making everything more practical. She brought fresh flowers for the dining room table. She taught Clara how to make star-shaped cookies. Noah was clearly more developed. He smiled more, babbled new sounds, tried to reach for the toys Clara dangled in front of him. Gavin would come home from work to find the house full of life. Sounds from the kitchen, laughter in the garden, soft music playing on the radio, Small changes that made all the difference. One afternoon, Clara was playing in the garden with Noah. Leah was watching them from the porch, smiling. Gavin stopped at his office window to watch the scene. There was something comforting in that picture, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. The house finally felt like a home again. Gavin still didn't fully understand what he was feeling, but he knew he didn't want that feeling to end. He knew he didn't want them to leave. At least, not yet. The house was submerged in the typical silence of the early morning hours. Clara was sleeping soundly in her room, and Noah had finally stopped whimpering in the makeshift crib in Leah's room. Gavin went down to the kitchen for a glass of water. For the last few days, sleep hadn't come easily. His mind was restless, full of thoughts he couldn't organize. He found Leah sitting at the kitchen table, a cup between her hands. She looked up when he entered. "Sorry," she whispered. "I couldn't sleep. I hope I didn't wake you." "You didn't. I was awake too." Gavin took a cup from the cabinet. "What are you drinking?" "Chamomile tea. It helps to relax. Want some?" "Please." Leah got up and prepared another cup. The steam rose between them, carrying the soft aroma of the herb. "Is Noah okay?" Gavin asked. "He is. Just had a busy day. I think he's growing too fast for his own good." They sat across from each other. The kitchen was lit only by the light over the sink, creating an intimate and peaceful atmosphere. "Have you always had insomnia?" Leah asked. "Since Sarah died?" "Sometimes it's worse, sometimes better. That must be hard." "It is." Gavin took a sip of the tea. It was the first time he had spoken about Sarah with Leah so directly. "How did she die, if you don't mind me asking?" "Car accident. She was coming back from a doctor's appointment. A drunk driver ran a red light." Leah looked down. "I'm so sorry." Clara was only 2. She didn't understand why Mommy wasn't coming back. "And you, how did you deal with it all?" Gavin was silent for a moment, stirring the tea in his cup. "I didn't deal with it well. I buried myself in work. I worked 16, 17 hours a day. Weekends, holidays, anything to not have to be home and feel her absence. And Clara? Clara stayed with the nanny. Or with my mother-in-law. I wasn't present, not really." Leah nodded, understanding. "After she was gone, I just existed," Gavin continued, his voice low. "I'd wake up, work, come home, sleep. I worked so much that I forgot what it was like to be alive. And now. He hesitated. "I don't know. Something has changed. The house has changed." "I've changed." Leah smiled faintly. "Clara is an amazing girl. She loves you very much. She's the best of me and Sarah combined. She must have been a very special woman." She was. Sarah saw beauty in everything, in the little things. In a flower blooming in the garden, a bird at the window, one of Clara's laughs. She had a way of seeing the world that I never had. And you miss that. I do. For a long time, I thought a piece of me had died with her. Leah took a sip of her tea, thoughtfully. "And now? Now I think maybe that piece didn't die. Maybe it was just dormant." They were silent for a few minutes. The wall clock showed 2 in the morning. "And you?" Gavin asked. "How was it after your husband left?" Leah sighed. "Hard, very hard. Do you want to talk about it?" "I've never told anyone. Not really." "You don't have to, if you don't want to." "No, it's okay. I think I need to talk." She straightened her shoulders, as if preparing herself. "At first I had hope he would come back. I thought it was just a rough patch, that he would get back on his feet and come back to us. So I spent weeks waiting, taking care of Noah alone, trying not to despair. But he didn't come back. No. And the bills started coming. Bills I didn't even know existed. Credit cards in my name, loans, financing. All without my knowledge. How did he manage to do that? We were married. He had access to my documents, and I trusted him completely. I never questioned it when he said he needed my social security number for something." Gavin shook his head, indignant. "I tried to negotiate with the creditors, but Noah was so little, I couldn't work full time." The money I earned didn't even cover half the debts. And your house? It was in my name, so it was the first asset they went after. I received warnings, notices, until one day they just came and said I had 24 hours to get out. That must have been desperate. It was, but you know what the hardest part was. What? Having to pretend everything would be okay. I survived. I slept in a shelter. I slept wide awake. The hardest part was having to pretend everything would be okay. Her voice trembled slightly. Noah was so little. He needed me to be strong. So I would smile at him, sing songs, play as if we were on an adventure, but inside I was dying of fear. Fear of what? Of not being able to take care of him. Of losing him too. Of ending up like one of those mothers you see on the news, who couldn't protect their children. Gavin reached his hand across the table and lightly touched Leah's hand. But you did it. You protected him. I tried. But some nights I would wake up on the park bench and look at him sleeping in my arms, and I'd wonder if he wouldn't be better off somewhere else, with a real family. You are his family, Leah. Am I? She looked into his eyes. A mother who can't even offer a roof for her own son. A mother who never gave up, who slept on the street to be with him. Who faced everything to protect him. Leah wiped away a tear that rolled down her cheek. Some days I feel so tired, not physically, in my soul. I understand. Do you really understand? I do. It's different from what I went through, but the pain is similar. The exhaustion is similar. They looked at each other for a moment. Two people who had lost so much. Two different pains, but equally real. Two people who had forgotten what it was like to have hope. Thank you, Leah said softly. For what? For listening to me, for not judging me, for reminding me that I'm still human. You never stopped being human, Leah. You just forgot for a while. And you? Did you forget you were still alive? I forgot. But I think I'm starting to remember. The silence returned, but now it was different. It was no longer the silence of discomfort or sadness. It was the silence of two people who recognized each other, who understood each other's pain without needing to explain. It's strange, Leah murmured. What is? For the first time in a long time, I don't feel alone. Me neither. They finished their tea in companionable silence. When they went up to their rooms, each carried with them the feeling that something had changed between them. It wasn't love, not yet. It was something more subtle and perhaps more important. It was recognition. It was the certainty that there was someone who understood. And sometimes that was enough to start healing. It was a rainy Sunday afternoon. The sound of drops hitting the window created a cozy atmosphere in the living room. Clara was sitting on the floor, surrounded by photo albums spread around her. Leah was on the couch with Noah in her lap. The baby was playing with a colorful rattle, babbling happy sounds that echoed through the room. What are you doing over there, sweetie? Leah asked, watching Clara flip through the pages of an old album, looking for pictures of Mommy to show Noah. Clara held up an album with a brown leather cover, worn by time. This one has the best ones. Want to see? Leah shifted on the couch, making Noah comfortable in her lap. Of course. Clara approached, carrying the heavy album. She sat next to Leah on the couch and opened it to the first page. This one is from Daddy and Mommy's wedding. The photo showed a young, radiant couple. Sarah wore a simple but elegant dress, and Gavin was smiling in a way Clara rarely saw nowadays. How beautiful, Leah murmured. You two look so much alike. Everyone says that. Look here. Clara turned the page. There were photos of a pregnant Sarah, touching her rounded belly, smiling at the camera. This is when I was in her belly. You can see how happy she was waiting for you. Daddy was happy too. Look at his smile here. Clara pointed to a photo where Gavin was kissing Sarah's forehead, his hands protecting her belly. They loved each other very much, Leah observed. Very, very much. Mommy always said that true love is when you want to take care of the person forever. Noah reached his little hand toward the album, curious about the colors in the photos. You want to see Noah, don't you? Clara smiled at the baby. This is my mommy. She was very pretty. Clara turned a few more pages, showing photos from when she was a baby. This is me when I was really little. Mommy said I was a very fussy baby. Just like Noah. Yeah. But she was patient. She never got mad when I cried in the middle of the night. Leah looked at the photo of Sarah holding baby Clara, her eyes full of tenderness and exhaustion at the same time. She seems like she was a wonderful mother. She was. She knew how to do everything. Cookies, braids in my hair, heal a scrape with a kiss. Clara ran her finger over her mother's face in the photo. Sometimes I forget what her voice sounded like, and that makes me sad. But you remember other things, don't you? The way she hugged you, the things she taught you. I do. She always told me to be kind to everyone. And to help those who needed it. Is that why you wanted to help me? It was, but also because... Clara hesitated, searching for the right words. Because I saw that you took care of Noah the same way Mommy took care of me. Leah felt her eyes well up. How so? With love, even when it was hard, even when you were tired. The way real moms do. Noah started to get fussy in Leah's lap. Clara immediately made a funny face at him, and he stopped fussing and smiled. You're good with him, Leah said. He's like a little brother. I've never had a brother before. And what's it like having a little brother? Clara thought for a moment. It's nice, but it's also a little scary. Why? Because now I have to take care of him too. Mommy always said that older siblings have to protect the younger ones, but Noah has his mommy to protect him. He does, but you two are part of my family now too, so I have to take care of you too. The simplicity of Clara's words made Leah's heart ache. Clara, it's true. Daddy took care of you, so I have to take care of you too. Clara turned a few more pages of the album. There were photos of birthdays, trips to the park, Christmas mornings. This one is from my 3rd birthday. It was the last party Mommy threw for me. The photo showed Clara in a pink dress, blowing out candles on a homemade cake. Sarah was behind her, helping, smiling. After she died, Daddy didn't throw parties anymore. He would just buy a store-bought cake and sing happy birthday really quickly. That must have been hard for him. It was. He got very sad after Mommy went away. Sometimes I would hear him crying in his room. Leah didn't know what to say. Clara's maturity always surprised her. But you know something, Clara continued, slowly closing the album. What? I miss Mommy. I always will. Clara looked directly into Leah's eyes. But the house became brighter when you came. Daddy started smiling again. The words came out with such sweetness and sincerity that Leah felt tears begin to stream down her face. Clara, it's true. Before you came, Daddy just worked. He'd come home tired, eat dinner quietly, and go up to his room. Sometimes he would go days without a real smile. And now? Now he comes home earlier. He asks about my day. He plays with me and Noah. And when you're around, he's different. How different? Happier. Like he remembered how to be happy. Noah started to whimper softly. Leah rocked him gently, but her attention was fully on Clara. Are you sure about that, sweetie? I'm sure. And you know what else? What? I think Mommy would have liked you. Why? Because you take care of people the way she did. And because you made Daddy smile again. Clara leaned over and kissed Leah's cheek. Thank you for coming to our house. Thank you for letting me stay. From the entryway, hidden behind the wall, Gavin heard every word of the conversation. He had just gotten home from the office and was about to announce he was home when he heard the voices in the living room. He stood there, absorbing everything Clara had said. Daddy started smiling again. The house became brighter when you came. He remembered how to be happy. Gavin felt his heart tighten in a way it hadn't in years. For the first time, he truly realized how much Leah's presence had changed everything. Not just the house, not just the routine, but him. Clara was right. He had forgotten how to truly smile. He had forgotten what it was like to come home and want to be there. He had forgotten what it was like to look to the future with anything other than just resignation. And all of that had come back when Leah and Noah arrived. Gavin stood there for a few more minutes, listening to Clara's laughter, Noah's babbling, and Leah's soft voice answering the girls' endless questions. For the first time since Sarah's death, his house sounded like a home, and for the first time, he didn't want that sound to stop. Gavin stayed up all night after hearing the conversation between Clara and Leah. His daughter's words echoed in his mind like an alarm he couldn't turn off. The house became brighter when you came. Daddy started smiling again. For the first time, he recognized what everyone around him had already noticed. Leah had brought life back into his existence. She had made Clara happier. She had turned the house into a place where he truly wanted to be. But something was bothering Gavin. A strange feeling, almost a premonition, that wouldn't leave him in peace. Something about Leah's story, about her house, about how everything had happened. On Monday morning, he arrived at the office earlier than usual. The building was still empty. Just the security guard at the front desk and a few emergency lights illuminating the hallways. Gavin went up to the 15th floor, where his office was. He told his secretary to cancel all his morning meetings when she arrived and locked himself in his office. He needed to understand why he felt so uneasy. He started by searching the company's most recent files, projects from the last 6 months, signed contracts, approved demolitions. Nothing seemed relevant at first glance. Then he remembered something specific. Leah had mentioned that her house was demolished last month. More specifically, she had said she saw it all being torn down, that she was there that day. Gavin opened the digital file of recent demolitions. He typed in the dates, filtered by project type. 12 demolitions appeared for the last month. He began to examine them one by one. First, an old commercial building downtown. Couldn't be it. Second, an abandoned factory in the industrial zone. Third, a residential complex of small houses on Maple Street. The mouse hovered over the link. Gavin clicked to open the full file. Maple Street 247. Gavin's heart stopped for a second. He vaguely remembered this project, an old residential area that was going to be turned into a complex of shops and offices. Several small houses had been bought and demolished to make way for the development. With trembling hands, he opened the complete file. All the information was there. The names of the former owners, the dates of the negotiations, the amounts paid, the demolition dates, the necessary approvals. Gavin scrolled down the page until he found the list of owners. There were 17 names, 17 families who had lost their homes to make way for his project. And there, in the middle of the list, was the name that made his world collapse: Leah Morgan, Maple Street, 247. Gavin read the name 3 times, hoping it was a mistake, that it was another Leah Morgan, that it was an impossible coincidence. But it wasn't. He kept reading. Leah had sold the house for a price well below market value. The document showed that she was in debt, that the sale was forced by a mortgage foreclosure, that she had tried to negotiate but could no longer keep up with the payments. And there, at the end of the document, in the final approval section, was his signature. Gavin Rhodes, CEO, date, March 15th. He had personally authorized that demolition. He had reviewed the documents, checked the values, confirmed the deadlines. He had signed without a second thought. The house where Leah lived with Noah, the house she lost because she couldn't pay the debts left by her husband, the house that was demolished, leaving her with nowhere to go. Gavin sat down heavily in his leather chair. How had he not made the connection before? Leah had mentioned the street when she told her story, but he hadn't paid attention to the details. There were so many projects, so many demolitions, so many documents crossing his desk every day. Now everything made sense. And at the same time, nothing made sense anymore. He had destroyed Leah's life without knowing it. He had signed the papers that put her on the street with a baby a few months old. And then, by a cruel twist of fate, he had become responsible for trying to rebuild what he himself had destroyed. Gavin spent the entire morning rereading the file, looking for some way to justify what had happened, but there was no justification. He had signed those documents without thinking about the people who lived in those houses, without caring about the stories behind each address. To him, it had been just another project, numbers on a spreadsheet, profit at the end of the quarter. money in the company's bank account. Now, those numbers had a face, they had a name. They had a 6-month-old baby who was sleeping peacefully in the guest room of his house. At 11 in the morning, his secretary knocked on the door. "Mr. Rhodes, is everything all right? I've cancelled all the meetings as you asked." "I'm fine, Margaret. I just need some more time alone." "Can I bring you some coffee?" "No need, thank you." Margaret left, concerned. In 15 years of working for Gavin, she had never seen him so downcast. In the afternoon, Gavin returned home earlier than usual. He found Leah in the kitchen, preparing Clara's snack. She smiled when she saw him, as she always did. "You're home early today." "Yeah, finished my appointments early." But Gavin couldn't look her in the eyes. Every time he saw her smile, he remembered the signature on the document, the date of the demolition, the desperation she must have felt that day. "Where's Clara?" "Playing in the garden with Noah. She invented a game where she pretends to teach him how to walk." "And does Noah like it?" "He loves it. He laughs every time she talks to him. She has a way with children." Gavin nodded but couldn't hold Leah's gaze. There was something different in his posture, in the way he avoided her eyes. "Are you okay?" Leah asked, stopping her cutting of the bread. "You seem worried." "I'm fine." "Are you sure you've been different since last night?" "It's just work. Do you want to talk about it?" "No." "It's nothing important." But Gavin wasn't okay, and Leah noticed she knew him well enough by now to know when something was bothering him. During dinner, Gavin barely spoke. Clara tried to involve him in the conversation, talking about her day at school, about Noah's antics, about plans for the weekend. But he responded in monosyllables, lost in dark thoughts. "Daddy, didn't you like the food?" Clara asked, noticing he had hardly touched his plate. "I did, sweetie. I'm just not very hungry." "Are you feeling sick?" "No, just a little tired." "A lot of work today?" "Yeah, a lot of work." Leah watched the interaction between father and daughter with growing concern. Something had changed in Gavin's behavior, but she couldn't pinpoint what. He seemed distant, almost guilty. "Daddy," Clara insisted, "can I bring cookies to school tomorrow? Aunt Leah said she can teach me how to make them." "Of course. Do you want to help too?" "Maybe." "Clara, we'll see." Clara made a face. "You always say we'll see when you don't want to do something. That's not it." "Yes, it is. Mommy used to do that sometimes too." The mention of Sarah made Gavin look at Clara more attentively. "Mommy did what?" "Said we'll see when she was worried about something and didn't want me to notice." Gavin sighed. Clara was too perceptive for her age. "Are you worried about something?" Leah asked gently. "No more than usual." But his answer sounded forced, and both Clara and Leah noticed. After dinner, while Leah gave Noah a bath, Gavin stayed in the living room with Clara, but even there, he couldn't concentrate on his daughter's conversation. "Daddy, are you listening?" "Sorry, Clara." "What were you saying?" "I was asking if we can take Noah to the park this weekend, so he can see the ducks." "Of course, if the weather is nice." "And can we have a picnic?" "We can." Clara came closer and climbed onto her father's lap. "Daddy, you like Aunt Leah, don't you?" The question caught Gavin off guard, especially considering what he had discovered that day. "Why do you ask that?" "Because you're different when she's around, happier, but today you're being weird with her." "Clara, it's true. At dinner, you barely looked at her." And she noticed. "I saw it." Gavin hugged his daughter, feeling the weight of guilt grow even heavier in his chest. Sometimes adults get worried about things that aren't anyone's fault. What kind of things? Work things, decisions they have to make. Clara was quiet for a moment. "Daddy, is Aunt Leah going to stay with us forever?" "I don't know, sweetie. I want her to stay, and Noah too." "I know. And you? Do you want them to stay?" Gavin hesitated. He did. More than he ever thought possible to want anything again. But now, knowing the truth, it's complicated, Clara. Why? Some things are too complicated to explain to a child. "I'm not such a child anymore, Daddy. The teacher said I'm mature for my age." "Yes, you really are. So you can tell me what's making you worried? Gavin looked at his daughter. Her blue eyes, so much like Sarah's, stared at him with sincerity. Clara deserved to know the truth. But how to explain something so complicated? Daddy, did you do something wrong? The question was like a punch to the gut. Why do you ask that? Because you have the face of someone who did something wrong and doesn't know how to fix it. Gavin felt his eyes burn. Clara's intuition always impressed him, but this time it was almost frightening. Maybe I did, sweetie. What was it? I can't explain right now. But maybe I hurt people without meaning to. Aunt Leah. Gavin didn't answer, but his expression confirmed everything for Clara. You can apologize to her. It's not that simple. Why not? Because sometimes, when you hurt someone without meaning to, saying sorry isn't enough to fix it. Clara became thoughtful. But you have to try, right? Mommy always said that trying is better than doing nothing. That night, after Clara fell asleep, Gavin found Leah in the living room. She was folding Noah's clothes, organizing everything with her usual care. I need to talk to you, he said. Leah looked up. There was something in the tone of his voice that immediately put her on alert. Of course. Let me just finish up here. It's important. I can see that it is. You've been acting strange since yesterday. They sat on the sofa. Noah was sleeping peacefully in the crib they had placed in Leah's room. The house was quiet, but the silence between them was thick, heavy with tension. Leah, Gavin started, then stopped. What is it? It's about your house. The one that was demolished? Leah frowned. What about the house? Gavin took a deep breath. Sometimes the weight of the truth is greater than the mistake itself, but she needed to know. The house. It was my company that demolished it. I was the one who signed the authorization. Leah looked at him without understanding for a few seconds. Then, slowly, comprehension began to dawn in her eyes. What do you mean? The Maple Street project. 17 houses demolished to make way for a commercial complex. I reviewed the documents and signed. I didn't know, but it was because of me. Leah's face gradually lost its color. Did you know? When you brought me here, did you know? No, I didn't know you lived there. I didn't even know you existed. I only found out this morning when I decided to check some files. Leah was silent for a long moment. Gavin could see the thoughts racing through her eyes, connecting the pieces of a puzzle she had never imagined she was putting together. You took me in out of guilt, she said finally, her voice low but firm. No, Leah. Not because you saw me. Not because you cared about me and Noah. Out of guilt. That's not true. Yes, it is. You found this out today, didn't you? That's why you came home acting strange. Why you barely spoke at dinner. Gavin didn't answer, and the silence confirmed everything for Leah. How long did you know? I only found out this morning, I swear to you. If I had known before, if you had known before, for what? Would you have looked for me in the park? Would you have felt obligated to help me? Leah, please, let me explain properly. But Leah was already getting up. She walked to the window, hugging her own body as if she were cold. All this time I thought, she began, then shook her head. It doesn't matter what I thought. Yes, it does. Let me explain. Explain what? That you felt guilty when you discovered you had unintentionally destroyed my life. That you brought me to your house to ease your conscience. It wasn't for that reason. No. Leah turned to face him. Then why was it? Gavin stood up too, trying to get closer, but Leah took a step back. It was because Clara insisted, because you and Noah needed help, because it was the right thing to do. And now that you know the truth, do you still think we need help? Leah, this doesn't change anything between us. It changes everything. You're still you. Noah is still Noah. And you're still the man who signed the papers that left me on the street with my son. I didn't know. But it was you. And now I know. Leah, I can't stay. Not after this. Please, don't do this. But Leah was already leaving the room. Gavin followed her down the hall, desperate. Leah, wait. There's nothing more to talk about. She went into the room and began to gather their few belongings. Noah woke up with the movement and began to whimper. Shh, my love. She picked him up calmly, even though her hands were shaking. We're leaving. You don't have to leave. Yes, we do. Leah put Noah in the stroller and continued packing the backpack. Where will you stay? That's none of your business. Leah, please. No, I won't accept anything else from you, because now I know this was all out of guilt, that you look at me and remember what you did, and I won't be your charity project. That's not what this is. Yes, it is. Leah finished packing her things and headed for the door. Gavin tried to block her path. At least let me explain to Clara. Clara will understand. Children always understand more than we think. Leah left the room, pushing Noah's stroller. Gavin followed her, desperate. Leah, don't do this to Clara. She's grown attached to you both. And I've grown attached to her, but sometimes that's not enough. They reached the front door. Leah stopped for a moment, looking around the house that had become a home for her and Noah. Thank you for everything, she said softly. Really. Even knowing the reason, we were happy here. You can still be. No, not like this. Leah opened the door and stepped out into the cold night. Gavin stood in the doorway, watching them disappear into the darkness. That's when he heard footsteps behind him. She left. Gavin turned around. Clara was halfway down the stairs, in her pajamas, her hair messy from sleep. What did you do, Daddy? Gavin looked at his daughter, then at the still open door, then back at Clara. But he couldn't find the words to explain how he had destroyed the only good thing that had happened to them since Sarah's death. Clara came down the rest of the stairs and stood beside her father, looking out into the empty night. They're not coming back, are they? Gavin slowly closed the door and knelt down to Clara's level. I don't know, sweetie. Clara hugged him tightly. I liked having them here. Me too. The house is going to be quiet again. It will. And for the first time in a long time, Gavin Rhodes cried in front of his daughter. The next 3 days were the longest of Gavin's life. The house seemed bigger, emptier, quieter than it had ever been. Clara asked about Leah and Noah every hour, but he had no answers to give. In the office, Gavin couldn't concentrate. The projects on his desk seemed meaningless. The numbers on the spreadsheets were just numbers again, cold, faceless. On Thursday morning, he locked the door and went back to the Maple Street file. This time, he continued reading past the list of owners. There were old photos of the street, simple but well-kept houses, small gardens, clothes on the line. One of the photos showed house number 247, Leah's house, small, painted light blue, with roses in the garden. Gavin imagined Leah sitting on the porch, rocking a newborn Noah, dreaming of the future, and he had destroyed that. He found reports on the families. Leah Morgan, single mother, 2-month-old baby, in financial distress. Requested an extension, unable to accommodate due to schedule. The schedule. He had pushed the team to speed up the demolitions. Because of deadlines, Leah and Noah were put on the street. Gavin read about other families, elderly people who had lived in the same place for decades. Young couples who had saved for years for their first home, all numbers on a spreadsheet, all approved with his signature. In the afternoon, he drove to Maple Street. What he found was a construction site, idle machines, signs announcing the future development. An elderly man was standing on the sidewalk, looking sadly at the lot. Excuse me, Gavin approached. Did you used to live here? The man looked at him suspiciously. I did for 42 years. I'm sorry. Are you? And who are you? I work for the company responsible for the demolition. The man glared at him angrily. So you're one of the ones responsible? I am. My house was right there, the man pointed. Built it with my own 2 hands. And Leah lived over there, sweet girl, was left alone with her little baby. Do you know what happened to her? Nobody knows. Some neighbors saw her in the park with the baby. After that, nothing. The man shook his head. You people didn't care where we went. You just wanted the land cleared. I care. I care now. Too late for that, mister. Gavin stood there for an hour, walking through the site, trying to imagine the houses that had existed, the lives interrupted, the stories erased. When he returned to the office, he had already made a decision. On Friday, he called an emergency board meeting. "We need to change the way we work," he began, without beating around the bush. "Change how?" asked Robert Arm, the CFO. "Our approach with the communities, with the people affected by our projects." Gavin turned on the projector. "First, detailed surveys with residents before any work begins. We want to understand who these people are, how long they've lived there, what their needs are." "That will delay the projects," Sandra observed. "It will, but it's the right thing to do." Second, a minimum of 6 months between notification and demolition, time for families to get organized. 6 months? Robert seemed incredulous. Third, creation of social projects. Partnerships to offer alternative housing. Microcredit programs for small entrepreneurs affected. "Gavin," Sandra leaned in, "this is going to cost a lot of money." "It will cost money, yes, but it's not charity, it's responsibility." "Our responsibility is to the shareholders," Robert argued. "Our responsibility is to the people too." Gavin turned off the projector. "Do you know how many families we've displaced in the last year? 143. And do you know how many times we asked where they were going? 0. Because to us, they were just numbers." "You're being very emotional," Robert sighed. "And people are people." Gavin stood up. "I will implement these changes with or without your support, but I'd rather we do it together." The meeting lasted 3 hours. There were heated discussions, but in the end, Gavin got approval for a 6-month pilot program. When everyone had left, he stood alone, looking out the window. How many stories were in those buildings? Margaret came in with documents. The contracts to be signed. Mr. Rhodes. Gavin took the papers. They were authorizations for 3 new projects. Before that he would have signed without a thought. Now he read every line. He looked for addresses. How many families would be affected? "Margaret, I need social reports on these areas before I sign." "That's not protocol, Mr. Rhodes. It is now." That night he found Clara in the living room. "Daddy, did Aunt Leah call?" "No, Clara. Did you try to look for them?" "I tried, but I couldn't find them." "Are they coming back?" "I don't know, sweetie." Clara was quiet. "Daddy, can you fix what you did wrong?" "Why do you ask that?" "Because you seem different, like you've decided something important." Gavin hugged his daughter. "Maybe I have. What?" "That I need to be a better person." "You're already a good person, Daddy." "I can be better. I can help more people. I can make sure other people don't go through what Aunt Leah went through. Even if she doesn't come back." "Even if she doesn't come back. Why?" "Because it's the right thing to do. And because she taught me that there are people behind the numbers." Clara smiled for the first time in days. "I think Mommy would like that." "I think so too." That night, after Clara fell asleep, Gavin sat in his home office. He had work to do, policies to create, procedures to establish. He didn't know if Leah would come back. She probably wouldn't. But he knew one thing for sure. He had to be different, and he would start the next day. 2 weeks had passed since Leah and Noah left. 2 weeks that felt like an eternity. Gavin had transformed his company, changed policies, created social programs, but none of it filled the void they left behind. Clara asked about them every day. Sometimes she would cry softly in her room, thinking he couldn't hear. Other times she would stand by the window as if waiting to see them return. On Sunday morning, after another sleepless night, Gavin made a decision. "Clara, let's go for a walk." "Where?" "To the park." "That park." Clara dropped her toys immediately. "Could they be there?" "I don't know, sweetie. But we can look." The drive to the park was silent. Clara looked out the window with anticipation, her little hands clasped in her lap. Gavin felt his heart race with every block. When they arrived, Gavin parked and sat in the car for a moment. What if they weren't there? What if they were, but Leah didn't want to talk to him? "Daddy, are we getting out? Let's go." They walked through the park slowly. Clara ran ahead, checking every bench, every corner. Gavin followed her, trying to control his anxiety. "Daddy!" Clara shouted from the other side of the park. Gavin looked in the direction of her voice and felt his heart stop. There was Leah, on the same bench where he had first found her. Noah was asleep in her lap, bigger now, his hair longer. Leah looked tired, thinner, but she was there. Clara started running toward her, but Gavin gently held her back. "Wait, sweetie. Let me talk to her first." "Why?" Because she might still be upset with me." Clara nodded, wise beyond her years. Gavin approached slowly. Leah saw him coming, but didn't move. She just adjusted Noah in her lap and waited. "Hi," he said softly, stopping a few feet away. "Hi. How are you two?" "We're fine." But Gavin could see they weren't completely fine. Leah had deep, dark circles under her eyes. Her clothes were more worn. Noah seemed restless even in his sleep. "Where are you staying?" "There's a shelter on the other side of town. I got a spot a week ago." "And before that?" Leah hesitated. "A few places. Acquaintances who let me stay for a few days." Gavin felt a pang of guilt. They had been on the streets because of him. Again. "Leah, Don't," she interrupted him. "You don't have to say anything." "Yes, I do." Gavin took another step closer. "May I sit down?" Leah nodded. He sat on the other end of the bench, respecting her space. "You were right," he began. "At first it was guilt, and because of Clara too." Leah looked at him but said nothing. "When I found out my company had demolished your house, I felt terrible. I wanted to fix what I had done. I wanted to ease my conscience. I know. But over time, everything changed." Gavin looked at her, trying to find the right words. "I really saw you. A beautiful, strong woman. A mother who would do anything for her son. A person who brought light into a house that had been dark for years." Noah stirred in Leah's lap. She rocked him gently, without taking her eyes off Gavin. "You made me want to live again," he continued. "Not just exist. Live. Feel things. Care for someone. Be part of a family again." Leah was silent for a long moment. "And now?" she finally asked. "Now that you know it wasn't just your kindness from the beginning? Now I know that it doesn't matter how it started. What matters is what it became." "And what did it become?" "Love, not romantic, not yet. But love, real affection. You and Noah became a part of me. A part of Clara. A part of our family." Leah looked down at Noah, sleeping peacefully. "You changed your company," she said. "I heard." Gavin was surprised. "How?" "One of the families at the shelter told me. Her husband works in construction. He said the roads company has different policies now, that they treat people better." "It's true. Why did you do it?" "Because you showed me there are people behind the numbers. Because I don't want other families to go through what you went through. Because I want to be the man that you and Clara deserve." Leah smiled faintly. "Clara asks about you every day," Gavin continued. "She cries when she thinks I'm not looking. The house is quiet again, empty. And you, I miss you. I miss you both. The way you sang to Noah at night. The smell of cookies from the kitchen. The way you arranged Clara's toys. How the house felt like a home when you were there." Noah woke up and began to whimper softly. Leah stood him up on her lap, letting him look around. "Hi, Noah," Gavin said gently. The baby looked at him with curiosity, then smiled. He reached his little arms out towards Gavin. "He remembers you," Leah observed. "May I?" Leah hesitated, then handed Noah to Gavin. The baby settled into his arms, as if it were the most natural place in the world. "He's grown," Gavin smiled. "A lot. He's already trying to talk." "And you? How are you feeling?" Leah took a while to answer. "Tired. Sad. Confused." "Confused, why?" "Because even knowing how it all started, I missed it too. The house, Clara, you." Noah babbled something and patted Gavin's face with his little hands. He laughed, and the sound made Leah smile for the first time. "He likes you," she said, "and I like him a lot." They were silent for a few minutes. Gavin gently rocked Noah, while Leah watched them. Leah, Gavin said finally, I can't change how it all started. I can't undo what my company did to your house, but I can promise that from now on, everything will be real. How can I be sure? Because I've changed. You changed my company. You changed the way I see people. You changed who I am. It wasn't just me. It was Clara too. And your conscience. It was you too. Your strength. Your dignity. The way you never gave up on taking care of Noah, even when everything seemed impossible. Leah wiped away a tear that began to fall. I wanted so badly to believe that someone genuinely cared about us. I care. Clara cares. More than you can imagine. Noah began to get restless. It was time for his bottle. He's hungry, Leah said, holding out her arms. Gavin handed the baby back, but before letting go completely, he held Leah's hand. Come home. Gavin, not just any house, our home, where you belong, where Noah can grow up safe, where Clara smiles when she sees you. Leah looked into his eyes. She saw sincerity. She saw affection. She saw something she thought she had lost forever. What if it doesn't work out? It will. Because this time, it's real. From day one. Leah was silent, rocking Noah, who was whimpering softly. I'm scared, she admitted. Of what? Of getting hurt again. Of hurting Noah. Of finding out it's really just guilt. It's not guilt, Leah. It's love. Love for you. For Noah. For the family we became without even realizing it. Leah looked around the park. At the bench where she had slept so many nights with Noah. At the place where her life had hit rock bottom. And then at Gavin, who was looking at her with a hope she recognized in herself. Then take me home, she said finally, without tears. Not just any house, that one. Where Clara smiles when she sees me. Gavin felt his heart burst with joy. Really, but on one condition. Anything. No more secrets. No more guilt. If we're going to be a family, we're going to be a real family. A real one, Gavin confirmed. They stood up together. Gavin picked up Leah's small backpack and Noah's stroller. Clara, who had been waiting patiently from a distance, ran to them. Are you coming home? We are, Leah smiled, bending down to hug Clara. Forever. If you'll have us. We will, Clara shouted. Very, very much. The drive back home was different from the drive there. Clara couldn't stop talking to Noah, who giggled at everything she did. Leah sat in the front seat, more relaxed than Gavin had seen her in weeks. When they arrived at the house, Gavin parked and sat still for a moment. Ready? Ready, Leah answered. They got out of the car. Clara ran ahead, eager to show Noah everything again. Gavin carried the backpack and the stroller. Leah held Noah, who looked around, recognizing the place. At the front door, Gavin handed the keys to Leah. Your house too. She took the keys and opened the door. Clara ran inside. Look, Noah, your toys are still here, and your crib, and... Clara's voice echoed through the house, bringing life back to every room. Leah entered slowly, not as a guest this time, not as someone just passing through, but as part of something that was being rebuilt, with truth this time, with honesty, with love. Gavin came in last and closed the door. He stood in the hall, watching Clara show Noah everything, watching Leah look around as if she was seeing the house for the first time. Welcome back, he said softly. Leah turned to him and smiled, a genuine smile, full of hope. It's good to be home. The house was no longer empty. It was full of laughter, of conversation, of life, full of a family that had found each other unexpectedly, had gotten lost in the pain of the truth, and was now finding each other again in the honesty of love. A family built not on perfection, but on truth, and that Gavin knew was much stronger. 6 months later, Saturday morning arrived with the noise that Gavin had learned to love, little footsteps running down the hall, laughter coming from the kitchen, the sound of the faucet turning on. Life, pure life, filling every corner of the house. Gavin came down for breakfast and found the scene that had already become routine. Clara was helping Leah make pancakes, while Noah, now almost a year and a half old, walked around the kitchen holding onto the table, babbling words only he understood. "Good morning, family," Gavin said, kissing the top of Clara's head and then Leah's. "Good morning, Daddy. Look, little brother can already walk to the fridge by himself." "Little brother," Gavin laughed. "That's what I call Noah now. He's my little brother, isn't he?" Noah looked at Clara and clapped his hands, as if he completely agreed with the new title. "Of course he is," Leah smiled, flipping a perfect pancake in the pan. Gavin watched the scene. In the last few months, they had found their own rhythm. Leah took care of the house not out of obligation, but because she wanted to. Gavin came home earlier from work, not out of guilt, but because that's where he wanted to be. Clara naturally divided her attention between her parents and Noah, as if there had always been 4 of them. And Noah. Noah was growing up happy, safe, loved by 3 people who considered him the center of their lives. "How was the week at the company?" Leah asked, serving the pancakes. "Good. We started the 3rd project with the new policy. The families are being relocated 6 months in advance, and we've secured partnerships for temporary housing." "That's so cool, Daddy," Clara clapped. "You're helping other families like you helped Aunt Leah." "It's not Aunt anymore, Clara. It's just Leah," she corrected gently. "So, Mommy Leah?" Leah and Gavin exchanged glances. They hadn't officially talked about it yet, but Clara, with her child's intuition, had picked up on something the adults were still processing. "If you want to call me that, I would be very happy," Leah said, her eyes shining. "I do. Noah, now you have a mommy and a sister, and I have a little brother and a—" She hesitated. "And a Leah who loves you very much," Leah completed, hugging Clara. During breakfast, Noah tried to eat by himself with his little spoon, getting more food on the high chair than in his mouth. Everyone laughed when he offered a piece of pancake to Gavin, making sounds that seemed to mean "Eat, Daddy." "He's talking," Clara shouted excitedly. "He said, Daddy, I think it was more of a da-da-da, but we'll take it," Gavin laughed, wiping Noah's face. After breakfast, Clara had an idea. "Can we go to the park today? It's been a while since we all went together." "Of course," Leah said. "The weather is beautiful." "The same park as always?" Gavin asked. "The same one." "Noah will love to see the ducks." An hour later, they were in the car on their way to the park. Clara sang in the back seat. Noah babbled along, trying to follow the melody. Leah and Gavin exchanged smiles in the front seat. "Are you happy?" Gavin asked softly. "Very," Leah replied, squeezing his hand. "And you? More than I ever thought possible." At the park, they set up a small base near the pond. Gavin brought the ball. Clara brought dolls for Noah. Leah brought snacks for everyone. Clara ran ahead, as she always did, exploring every corner as if for the first time. Noah, fascinated by the grass and trees, tried to touch everything he saw. Gavin pushed the stroller when Noah got tired of walking, and Leah walked beside him, her hand intertwined with his. "Remember the first time we came here?" Leah asked. "I do. Clara saw you on the bench and didn't want to leave. And now look where we are." They stopped for a moment, watching Clara teach Noah how to throw breadcrumbs to the ducks. The girl was serious, patiently explaining how the ducks like to eat, while Noah laughed and tried to imitate her movements. "Before, this house was just walls," Leah said, looking at the family they had built. "Now it has a soul." "Because now it has us," Gavin replied. "No secrets, no lies, just us." "Just us," she confirmed. Noah managed to throw a crumb into the water and shouted with joy. Clara applauded him, as if he had done the most amazing thing in the world. "Daddy, Mommy Leah, come see. Little brother fed the ducks all by himself." They approached the edge of the pond. Noah was beaming, clapping his hands and pointing at the ducks swimming peacefully. "Dada," he said clearly, reaching his little arms out to Gavin. "Mama," he said next, turning to Leah. "He said it!" Clara jumped. "He said Daddy and Mommy." Leah picked Noah up, her eyes filled with tears of joy. "That's right, my love. That's Daddy and that's Mommy. And that's Clara," the girl added. "Your big sister, who's going to teach you everything." Gavin hugged all 3 of them, feeling a completeness he had never imagined possible. There, at the edge of the pond, with Clara laughing, Noah babbling new words, and Leah smiling in his embrace, he understood what it truly meant to have a family. It wasn't just blood, it wasn't just biology, it was choice. It was care. It was love built day by day, with patience, with truth, with dedication. They stayed at the park until late afternoon. They played on the grass, had an impromptu picnic, took photos with his phone. Noah slept in the stroller under the shade of a tree, while Clara collected flowers to make a crown for Leah. As the sun began to set, they packed up their things and walked back to the car. Clara skipped ahead, singing. Gavin pushed the stroller with Noah sleeping peacefully. Leah held his free hand. "Gavin," she said softly. Thank you." "For what?" "For finding me. For insisting. For changing. For choosing us. Thank you. For coming back. For believing. For giving us a chance." They walked in companionable silence. They didn't need any more words. Everything they needed to say was there, in the way Clara cared for Noah, in the way Noah smiled at them, in the way the house welcomed them with warmth when they arrived. A family. Unconventional, not perfect, but real. Not every family is born ready-made. Some find each other along the way, lost, hurt, in need of care. And when they choose each other with truth, when they decide to stay despite the mistakes, when they build love on honesty, they become unbreakable. They last forever. And when Gavin looked at Leah, at Clara, at Noah sleeping in the stroller, he knew they had found it. The forever that neither he nor Leah had dared to dream of. They were finally home. All of them. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like, because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.